My wife presents me with a new request, a massage table for a salon. So I go straight to the garage and I uncover a cache of oak offcuts. They lie rough and weathered from storage. But I know beneath their dull skin gleams a grain worth reviving. Oak is like a grumpy uncle, crusty on the outside, classy once cleaned up. To wake that hidden beauty, I rouse the jointer. The machine hums like a caffeinated bee, eager to bite. I pass each board across its blades, first a face, then an edge, squaring, straightening, settling the wood into obedient lines. Next comes the table saw. I rip the planks, but the cut is coarse, unsatisfying, and the oak deserves better. So I swap the tired blade for a brand new ripper, sharp and eager. The difference is instant. Smooth slices, clean as silk. Now with the cut refined, the list of pieces takes shape, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is the joy of woodworking. Sometimes the only thing standing between disaster and divinity is $50 of new steel. The thickness planer follows. In my shop, it is a great equalizer, shaving each board until they share the same truth of dimension. Every pass whispers closer to perfection, and when the final curl falls, the oak's vein reveals themselves, marble-like rivers of grain flowing through golden stone. It's the kind of beauty that makes you forget your lower back is staging rebellion. Piece by piece, the pile transforms into promise. For the long rails, I want a softened end, a subtle curve to ease the eye. I fashion a quick jig for the drill press, and, with a whole saw, carve a quarter circle notch. It is a small gesture, but one that shifts the table from the plain to the pleasing, like plucking your eyebrows. You don't notice it's missing until it's done. At last, the time comes to mark the mortises. Simple work, steady work. I lay the style against the rail, pencil in hand, and let the wood tell me where it wishes to be joined. I measure the width of the rails with my calipers, cold steel against warm oak, and divide it by 3. That third becomes my compass, the secret proportion to guide the mortise. I press the sharp tip of the marking gauge into the wood, anchor it in place, and let the body rest against the rail's sides. With that, the gauge is tuned, precise as a watchmaker's tool, and I can scribe the third from both flanks with confident strokes. A combination square carries the lines across the ends, crisp and clean. With the same setting, I mirror the marks for the second mortise. Repetition breeding rhythm, rhythm building reliability. It's like Catholic school. Do it the same way every time, or God gets mad. The square mortiser waits. I trade its bit for one just shy of the mortise's width. First, I set the depth so the drill tips peaks beneath the chisel. Then tighten it halfway. A twist of the chisel squared against the fence, and the bit is locked firm. A gentle press keeps everything true, perfectly perpendicular. Precision here matters. Without it, the mortise would be mauled, and the joint forever weakened. Then I lower the chisel, and the machine bites into the oak, one side, then the other, and the mortise emerges, neat and sure. Back at the table saw, I swap blades again, this time for a general purpose cutter, the all-rounder. The riving knife comes off. It would only hinder me now. Standing taller than the blade, it's useless for cutting tenons. I can now begin the cuts. Tenons fall from the rails in measured passes. First, roughing the oval size, then refining each one by hand. There are swifter ways, like jigs, dados, and elaborate setups. But the time to set them up would outweigh the gains. Sometimes simplicity serves better. And sometimes it is just laziness with a better press release. The results are pleasing. Faint blade marks stripe the cheeks of the tenons, but those shallow grooves are not actual flows. They will act as tiny teeth, giving the glue more to cling to, more to bind. I confidently call it micro-engineering. Other people might call it couldn't be bothered to send. Pick your truth. It is now time for a trial fit. The rails slide into their mortises with a whisper, snug and certain. The joint grips as if grown together, like a glove. Oak clasping oak. Sure, a glove made for a weird wooden hand, but a glove. Now, with the mainframe promising strength, I turned to the styles. I marked their mortises for the smaller rails, the crosspieces that will brace the structure and granted the sturdiness my wife's work requires. As before, I set the marking gauge, steel points poised and paired with a combination square to define the ends of the mortises. My first draft was adrift, skewed and unsatisfactory, but with fresh marks the lines fall true. The gauge then traces the mortise's size, crisp and certain. I add smaller mortises at the end of the long rails, the sockets that will bind them to the short rails. With the layout complete, I return to the square mortise, my patient accomplice in this work, and I let it chew neat cavities into the oak once more. Next come refinement of the edges. I fit a small rounding bit into the palm router, thinking it deep enough to leave not only a gentle curve, but also a whisper of flatness along the profile. The machine hums, and I run it across all the places I will never again reach once the frame is assembled. On the styles, I stop shy of the top, reserving that curve for the moment when style and rails will meet, joining into a continuous sweep. Something is off. Perhaps the bit is dull, perhaps my pace is too slow, but scorch marks bloom black along the grain. I will need to send them away, so I fetch my sander, but fate decides otherwise. The sander whines, withers, and dies in my hands, exhaling the acrid scent of molten plastic. I open it, hoping for a simple fix, but the electronics are charred, the boards stinking like burnt rubber. Warranty will cover it, no doubt, but that does not bring it back to me today. Therefore, I turn to my smaller orbital sander, and of course my own hands. Then, slowly, steadily, I smooth the profiles, erasing every scar of fire until the oak gleams clean again. The pieces, neatly laid out, resemble an oversized set of wooden bricks, a jointless Lego waiting to play. This, perhaps, is my favourite stage, all the promise of assembly without yet the weight of permanence. It's probably woodworking's equivalent of dating. Everything still looks perfect because nothing's been tested. A brief detour to the bandsaw yields the small wedges I'll need to lock the screw mortises. I confess I've never loved this tool. It is hailed as safe. Yet I cannot silence the unease when my fingertips drift near its teeth. Perhaps it is a butcher's image that haunts me, meat and bone sliding across a bandsaw's blades, the line between carcass and hands too thin in my mind. Apparently my brain likes to run reruns of saw. Still, the wedges are cut and glue up chords. I begin with the size. Here, at least, there is no tension. The joints align effortlessly, the wood falls into place as if it remembers where it belongs, and I need little glue. These mortises and tenons are born for strength. The fit is firm, the structure sound, and for once, assembly feels like ease. And yet, how could I not foresee the folly? I glue the sides together with the table upright, in its final stand, instead of on its side. Roughly 10 million times easier it would have been otherwise. But no, I had to make things difficult. Still, mistakes are often merely lessons in disguise, and this one does not break me. In the end, the wedges tap home, tightening the joints, and the frame stand, bright and patient, left to dry overnight. Morning light returns me to the workshop, and with it the final flourishes. I round the ends of the table in a generous sweep, then trace a subtle moulding around the edges. An elegant frame with the form I've built. A light sanding follows, softening the surfaces, preparing them for the true transformation. Then comes the moment I relish, the oil. Tung oil, gentle, pure, without chemical dyes or bitter scent. I pour it onto a rag, spread it slow, and the oak awakens beneath my hands. The grain leaps to life, veins glowing with depth and warmth. Time stretches here. Every stroke let me feel the marriage of oil and wood. Matter meeting touch. At this point, it is not just finishing, it is foreplay for furniture. I had first thought to use bed slats for the base, but quickly saw the folly. Massage table is not a bed. In Thai practice, the therapist may stand on a surface, pressing into the body below. Slats would sag and surrender. Plywood, stout and unyielding, proves the wiser choice. I cut the separate rails, then the plywood base itself, fit them together and fix them with screws. A simple step, yet it locks the structure into its final form. And then, voila! The mattress settles into its new frame, and the table stands ready. Not just a piece of furniture, but a promise fulfilled. In the salon, in its proper place, it looks proud and purposeful. I will make another record of how we transformed the shop, but for now, the preview is enough. In truth, the measure of success is simple. The wife is happy, and that, above all, is a true completion of this work. Because at the end of the day, the whole point of marriage and woodworking is the same. Cut things carefully, fit them properly, and hope that they don't come apart when someone puts their weight on them.